Hello and welcome back to another episode of CharlaFootball. I'm your host, Jerry Tavares. I'm also accompanied by Tomas Estrada. How are you doing today, Tomas?
I'm doing great, bro. Out here in the Charla football offices at 12 p.m. I mean 12 a.m.
I know
Putting
it's
that
a little late
overtime.
night session for us, but hey, bro, football doesn't sleep, so keep that in mind. And I hope to our listeners watching, um, make sure to support us because we're over here doing late nights for you guys. So support your small creators because together we'll make it big. Make sure to follow us on Charla Football. That's CHARLA Football. Follow us on our website. That will have links to our TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Spotify, etc. Um, but yeah, so today we're going to talk about the CONCACAF Champions League. I know in the previous episode we talked about the European nights, the UEFA Champions League, but how could we forget the tournament that's here at home, the CONCACAF Champions League? Obviously, the better tournament of both tournaments combined, but there was a lot of shocking results, a lot of disappointing results as well. So let's just get right into it. Let's start off with Tigres versus Columbus Crew. I think this was probably one of the shocking results. A lot of people had Columbus Crew um, not advancing to the next round. They had Tigres going to the next round, and I am one of those people. I did have Tigres advancing because I didn't see how Columbus Crew would get a result in Nuevo Leon at the Volcan, but they did. They tied the game after going down 1-0 after a horrible mistake from their goalkeeper Patrick Schult, something like that. Sorry, Schult. Yeah, just horrible goalkeeping mistake. I don't know what's up with the MLS keepers this CONCACAF Champions League window, but they've been making horrible blunders at the back, and that kind of led to Columbus Crew's like shaky start throughout like the first 60 minutes, I would say, but up until Cucho Hernandez and Diego Rossi linked up for that tying goal. That's kind of when they started to become a little bit more resilient. I don't know. What did you think of the overall gameplay?
I mean, the overall game was really just, Tigres trying to attack or attempting an attack, and Columbus Crew just looking for that through ball really to Cucho Hernandez or to Diego Rossi or to any forward that was really making a run or opening or winger opening up wide, which was really just a semi counterattack style, but I mean, Columbus Crew looked comfortable defending versus this just aged Tigres team. These players are older. They're the players that I mean, Gignac. When have I seen Gignac since? I think it's like 9 years since he's been at Tigres, and Pizarro. He's just. I don't remember a time where I watched Liga MX where I didn't see Pizarro play for Tigres. And yeah, I mean, this Tigres team is just super, just old, and they really squeezed all the juice out of this orange that they could get out of Gignac, Pizarro, and I mean the players of this generation, and I mean even the Tigres fans are calling for a complete generational change. They just want newer players, younger players, and
They have. It's funny because they have younger players like on the bench, but they don't really use it because they're relying on these older, experienced players. I understand that when it comes to these tournaments, you want your experienced players to add on to the field, but you saw that after 90 minutes, heading into extra time, I mean, they really couldn't affect the game in any way, shape, or form.
and
And when it came to the penalty kicks, which we'll get right into, um, Gignac and Claudio Pizarro were the two experienced players that you expect them to score against an unexperienced keeper like Patrick Schult. But I mean, he got those two saves, and I mean, do you blame that on like tired legs? Like, why? How do they even miss?
I mean I'm not gonna take anything away from Patrick Scholl, but Gignac and Pizarro are just how many Tigres shootouts have you seen where Gignac scores, Pizarro scores, and Nahuel Guzman comes out and does a masterclass of saving 2 to 3 penalties? I mean, obviously Patrick showed he had to study these players, and he studied exactly what they do in these situations, and he prepared himself as best as he could. And there's your result. He's a young goalkeeper who prepared himself very well to seemingly almost as if Columbus Crew expected to go to penalties.
Hmm.
And I mean, going a little bit back into how you were saying, tired legs. I mean, of course, Guignac's tired. He's 38, about to turn 39 in December, and it's just use them as a sub if you want. Use them the first 45 minutes and sub them off, but you can't use uh you can't use Andre Pierre for a full, what is it, 120 minutes plus
Yeah.
penalty kicks. I mean, you just can't. And then on top of that, you're missing Rafa Carioca, you're missing a key center back, you're missing your key goalkeeper. You're missing just so many players that this Tigres team, on top of being aged, they just don't have their best players right here. They don't have their midfield that holds it down
Mm.
for them, really. So you need fresh legs, especially because fresh legs, they do take you a long way, especially when they're younger legs where they're able to run up and down the field and able to just, track back better and be able to attack easier. I mean, you have, I think it was Diego Reyes just doing a sprint, as a center back, just out of the desperation that nobody's making those runs forward because they're just so tired because
Yeah.
they're older players. They don't prepare themselves at the levels, that the Europeans do, where they're able to, play into their mid 30s and older, like close to 40s. They just, the reality is that they're not prepared to that level to be able to play that. So you need younger players.
I
I mean,
agree.
you put in I forgot the player from that went from Atlas to Tigres. He's like black curly hair. Uh
I don't remember.
Black curly hair. He went from Atlas to Tigres, whatever. He's about 19 years old. He comes on Osiel Herrera. Sorry, Osiel Herrera. He
Yeah.
comes on, but who does he come on for at Marcelo Flores? Which Marcelo Flores, he has an interesting game because although he helps the Tigres attack, he doesn't really create any solid chances in the chances where he was, or should have been a key factor in. He really bottles it. He's offside and he touches the ball, and on top of that he passes it, or he really just missed the 1v1 versus the goalie where they lay the ball off to him across and Patrick Shaw just gets there.
Mm.
And if I mean the first thing we're taught as nines is when there's a pass back and the goalie's running towards goal, you're supposed to hit it in the air because the momentum of the keeper going backward doesn't really give him that that moment to go up and get it. Whereas it's on the ground, he could just really just dive and get it. But I mean, just mental lapses from Marcelo Flores on offensively. I mean, Osila Herrera comes on and he really just doesn't do much. And there just needs a whole generational change where you have midfielders in solid positions and younger players at the wing, especially like Javier Aquino's they're starting right back. I mean, I just don't know why.
Yeah, they need to completely start like moving some of these players out and start looking at the younger players that they have on the bench, so they have it at their disposal. But a team that we have to commemorate is the Crew. The Crew, they, against all odds, they did an exceptional job in Nuevo León. They become the first MLS team to advance in Mexico after not winning the first leg at home, and I think a big factor to that is the coaching of Wilfred Nancy. I mean, honestly, he's probably one of those coaches that should be looking at growing his resume in Europe because he already won MLS Cup. He's taken his team to now semifinals of a CONCACAF Champions League, and it's not like they're just kind of getting lucky. Their team plays good football from what I've seen throughout MLS and the MLS Cup final. They have a set style of play, and Wilfred Nancy is able to get the best out of his players. And I mean, I don't know. What do you think about the Crew on the day? The Crew, like I said, against all odds, they end up going to the quarterfinals.
I feel like I have to agree with you because if you look at this Columbus Crew team, they're really not. How would I say? If you compare the Columbus Crew team to majority of MLS, they're on top. They're miles ahead of them. They're not miles ahead of them, but there's a huge difference between the average MLS team and Columbus Crew. Sorry, but if you compare them to Liga MX, I mean, Tigres is seventh place right now. They tie at Tigres. They advance on penalties. The Columbus Crew would really be a fifth, sixth place team in Liga MX. I mean, they're a solid team. That's no disrespect. I mean, fifth and sixth place in Liga MX is. I mean, you're talking about like the top five teams in your continent.
Mhm.
And I just think if they continue with this path, and developing these players, especially players like Cucho Hernandez, I mean, Diego Rossi, I don't know how much more you could develop him because, he's a more experienced player. But just one or two tweaks in their midfield, and they should be able to compete in and out of CONCACAF Champions League every year. And it surprised me because Wilfred Nancy definitely surprised me because I did not expect Columbus Crew to be able to, how would I say, like, not defend so well, but because really defense was required, but go from a counterattack back to defense, those transitions like so quickly where they were just so disciplined, and you could see that that's practice. That's not, well, it's learned, but it's just, you could tell that's a coaching tactic.
Mhm.
And Tigres, especially at Nuevo Leon, they're really famous for being able to get those last minute results. And those last minutes, Columbus Crew kind of takes the ball from them, touches it around, and because they know that's when it's the most pivotal times for Tigres, where the fans are cheering them on and pushing them forward. Columbus Crew wasn't having; they just took the ball from them. You can't score on me if I have the ball.
That's true. Now, so we're over here praising Wilfred Nancy, and rightly so because of what he's done. Now, I think you had mentioned prior to the note, to the video, uh, Siboldi, do you think he should be on his way out? I mean, a lot of people are saying that he's been underperforming with probably one of the finer squads at his disposal.
If we look at it from a Liga MX standpoint, where losing to MLS is worse than a sin. It's worse than failing. The club. It's like failing the federation in a way. Losing to MLS and at home, and no disrespect to the MLS, but that's just the way it's been. 16 out of the last 17 Champions Cups or Champions Leagues, which we know at the time, have been won by Mexico. So it's a detrimental factor. I told you about the Philadelphia coach, where if it was a Mexican team that got knocked out 6-0 to MLS team, he'd be out in seconds.
Yeah.
And right here, I just expect the same thing. Dante Siboldi loses at home. And I just feel like if it was my coach, where we lose to an MLS team at home, I feel like he has to be out in that instant. I don't want him back in the locker room. It's not to disrespect him, but it's just the decisions that he made on field. To keep Gignac, and you keep Gignac into, for that experience in penalties. But personally, I don't want my team going to penalties. We're at home. Why aren't we going to win in the extra time? Why aren't we putting fresh legs in, a fresh nine? Because they have a semi-solid fresh nine. You put that nine in against tired legs. Who knows what he could have done? But he wants to bet on the penalty kicks. Where against the team, you don't know how they do penalty kicks because clearly they weren't prepared against the solid goalkeeper.
So ultimately, you're saying that Siboldi out. Basically, you're agreeing with most people.
I'd have to agree with Siboldi out just because, as a Mexican club, what do you play for? You play to win the CONCACAF Champions. You play for this Mundial de Clubes that is coming up, this Club World Cup.
Yeah, ultimately, that's like the ultimate goal. Everybody wants to be a part of the Club World Cup because, I mean, not saying that people don't care about the CONCACAF Champions League and whatnot, but everybody wants to be playing against the biggest teams in the world, like your Liverpools, your Madrid, your Bayern Munichs, when it comes to the Club World Cup, especially since it's going to be here in 2025 in the US. Everybody's going to have eyes on it. So I don't know. It's one of those things that, I mean, it's unfortunate for Tigres, but I mean, you got to give the flowers to the crew for being able to pull it off. Now, kind of like on the other side, moving to America and New England Revolution, this was just an utter domination from Liga MX, from a Liga MX standpoint, and one of the best teams in Liga MX in America versus the worst team in New England Revolution. I wouldn't even say one of the worst teams after their performance, the two legs. I mean, there's no doubt that they are the worst team in MLS right now, especially because they're also in last place in their conference. So, I mean, when it came to the notes, I didn't really write much just because, I mean, what do you write when America completely dominated from minute 1 to minute 90 and shut them out the first leg, and then coming into the second leg, yeah, they got those 2 goals, but I mean, what does it really matter when your aggregate score line is by more than 7 goals?
Yeah, I mean, there's just not really you could talk about. America dominated as was expected. This game was lost in the first 30 minutes of
The first leg.
the first leg. Yeah, I mean, it was just completely. utter and total domination by the top three, top four Liga MX side versus the worst MLS side, and it proved to be that 9-2. Like
Yeah.
it was expected.
I mean, what can you say? I mean, America. I mean, big ups to them. They had to get it done. No, I guess this is like a topic we can bring up. Was it the fact that America were so good that they were able to win by this amount, or was it New England Revolution just being so bad? Like, which one is it? Which one's weighed? What weighed more, pretty much?
Um, I think at the professional level, there's never a moment where there should be these type of results of the 9-2. If you're playing at your 100% and your 100% motivation, there's no way that this should happen. That you lose by 7 goals if you're a professional player. Because New England, although it's a different league, you're in this competition. You're at supposedly at the level of these teams. You should not lose by 7 goals ever because you're professional. And if you're playing 100% at your 100% motivation, you should never lose by this. Maybe 2 or 3 goals, okay. Like but
So you're
it's
saying it's
just
like a lot. They were lacking motivation, pretty
they were
much.
lacking motivation for sure. They probably thought this game was over before the whistle was even blown to starting.
Yeah. So do you feel? So then you kind of agreed that it was more of a, it was more of the fact that New England were just terrible. That America looked so good. So looking ahead to America versus Pachuca, which we'll get into, um, that's going to be obviously a lot more even of a game. Do you think they're going to see their true level at that point?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's when you would be able to see your true level because Pachuca's coming motivated and New England just wasn't motivated at all. It's like they were having none of it.
I think something that we never aired on our podcast just yet, but something that was key, and I mean, kind of thinking about it now, was the fact that New England never got to play that return leg at home. In fact, they played their first leg at home and the return leg at the Azteca. And I mean, just kind of looking at it as if you're a player and in the beginning before they change it, that you're gonna have that return leg at home. You kind of have like the idea that like, okay, like we have that advantage of playing the return leg at home, but then you find out like either a few days before, the day of, that actually like our higher ups, the president or whatever, he's gonna have the return leg at the Azteca because we're gonna have a monster truck event over here. Like you kind of already showing your priorities. So as a player, do you kind of feel like, damn, like the club doesn't really care about me? They rather make money here, like off a monster truck event, versus like their soccer club, that represents them.
I mean, that for sure has to have some type of like a motivation killer because if you're New England at that point where you're like, oh, we play at the Azteca first, and then we play at we close at New England. You probably go into Azteca thinking, we're not receiving a goal here. We're just clearing the ball. I don't care if it's like shithouse football. We're not receiving a goal. We're just clearing the ball. Keeping it over there. Maybe you could change that tactic and see what happens at home.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that your higher ups, just really just give the game to America to close at their home rather than looking for a neutral venue where you could have played. I don't know, maybe you could have played in Columbus or maybe you could have played at Inter Miami Stadium, which were both vacant. And I don't know, somewhere that gave you, or maybe not gave you an advantage, but at least didn't give the complete advantage to America.
Definitely. Now let's move forward into the last game. Oh, well, actually, one of the second to last game, Pachuca versus Herediano, because we're gonna save that Messi, the Miami and Messi Monterrey game for last. Because I mean, how can we not save the best for last? But Pachuca Herediano, another game where it was just complete shutout from a Liga MX side, and this time onto a Costarricense side in Herediano. And it was pretty much wrapped up after the first leg in Costa Rica, where they won 5-0. Pachuca, just dominated in from first minute to last minute in every way of the game. And this time around, it was a little bit tighter of a game, a little bit slower paced from Pachuca, but you can tell they know they have the game wrapped up, so they're not playing with that same intensity. You saw Salomon Rondon get on the score sheet once again. I mean, he's probably been one of the best signings for the league and for Pachuca this year. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, Salomon Rondon right now is the best signing in Liga MX for the season so far. I mean, just what he's done in CONCACAF Champions, what he's done in La Liga. It's just honestly, it's been unheard of a while for like a first year signing to do that. I don't think we've heard of one like that in like probably since Gignac.
Since yeah, I was about to say since Gignac when he first came.
Yeah, and I mean, this player is special. I mean, the fact that they got him as a free agent and all they had to pay was his contract and the agent fees, etc., is just something crazy. No transfer fee, nothing like that. And I don't know who let him go for free, but they made a big mistake with that one.
Now, as well, I mean, we have to look at Herediano. You said that they played a strong game, and I mean, we saw that they came out with a little bit more intensity in this part of Mexico, but I mean, ultimately, just really wasn't enough, and we see them crash out in these quarterfinals. I mean, it's kind of unfortunate because you want other leagues to do better. You want other teams besides MLS and Liga MX making it to these instances, but they really just can't keep up. And do you feel like there's any way that um, other leagues or other teams can somehow grow?
I mean, well, let's look at the side of the other team. What they have, 3 Mexican players and a Mexican coach. By their standards, this is growth because making it to quarterfinals and eliminating Toluca. Let's not forget they did do that. Toluca at home. In that is kind of a progress because you eliminate a big Mexican team and you lose to another big Mexican team.
Hmm.
But ultimately, in the terms of structure, where you're able to pull something out of Costa Rica. I mean, the biggest player I know from there is really Keylor Navas. And if you're talking about, creating progress, how the way that the U.S. has done with their developmental system is really just through, heavy sums of money that you invest into your youth. And I don't think that Costa Rica really has that right now.
Yeah, that's probably something they should be looking into because I mean you can tell they have quality. We see it at the international level, but I mean they definitely have to pump a little bit more money into their league. That way they can be competing at the highest level. I mean, because the end goal is to get these teams at the Club World Cup. To represent their club at the highest level, not just at the international level, but you want your club to do well as well. But like I said, it was just a complete domination from Pachuca. And I mean, Herediano really had no exit after that first leg. So it's unfortunate for them, but another Mexican Mexican club that is on to the semifinals. Lastly, we're gonna look at the last game. Of course, Monterrey versus Inter Miami, the best for last. It was a pretty good game. From a neutral standpoint, I mean, you get to see Messi play in Mexico, which is pretty cool. You see these players like Busquets, Jordi Alba, Luis Suarez have their time on the pitch, playing pretty much all 90 minutes, besides Jordi Alba, who never finished the game because he got a red card. But that's something we'll get into later. A match that ended in the first like 2-0 aggregate. So it was everything to play for in Monterrey. I was one of the believers that thought Miami would do at least a little bit better with Messi on the pitch, but they look pretty much the same. Just there was no creativity up front. If it wasn't coming from Messi, but he can't do it on his own anymore. He's not at his prime. He's 36 years of age, and while he can do it with Argentina, it's because of his supporting cast. He has players making those movements for him. He has players that have a lot more experience at the highest level versus, I mean, these tired legs and Suarez and Jordi Alba and Sergio Busquets next to him. They can't do the same, and then they don't have high quality throughout their other players. But in this match, we saw that. We saw Monterrey just completely get the better of them, winning. What was it, 3-1?
Yeah, 3-1.
3-1. Yeah, honestly, yeah, you're right. It could have probably been worse, bro. So Monterrey, who had played 13 matches against non-Mexican clubs in their stadium, and they had won, I think prior to this was 12 out of 13. It's now 13 out of 14. So you see, when it comes to playing Monterrey, it's not an easy task for any team. And you predicted that before. I'll give you your props for that because you did say that there's no way they're going to win.
I called the exact score too, a 3-1.
Damn.
Because although, how do I say this?
Start getting into betting, bro.
I'm gonna start betting. Nah, not after that Barca. But it's just Miami is okay. They have a solid, experienced offense, But I just knew that Monterrey's just young talent at the back that they have. With El Toro Guzman, he's just that kid is so good, bro. He's just so good, and he's just so good at what he does. I mean, he locked up Suarez the whole game. You had Suarez, just throwing fits, tugging on his elbow, like trying to just snap it in half, or I don't know what he was trying to do.
Yeah, dude, it's like throwing give me major like flashbacks to like the that was it Lampard? No, it was Cahill when he tried to bite Cahill, or was it
Yeah,
Lampard?
it was just by trying to
And
buy.
the same thing with Chiellini too.
He'd shoot off a part of Chiellini's shoulder. So it could have been worse for El Toro, but
Honestly, yeah, probably.
could have gotten bit. Could have gotten some rabies, but I mean, he was just so grand. And you look at this midfield that Monterrey has. I mean, the way that they were I wouldn't say lock up Messi, but limit Messi for sure. Every time he would take one player, two Monterrey players would collapse on him and just force him to play back or force him to play wide. And it's not really dangerous as it was, watching that Mexico versus Argentina World Cup, because you play wide and who would you play it to? You would really play it to maybe. I don't even know their player. I don't even remember their players' names. I mean, I see Jordi Alba get it on the wing a couple of times. But even
Yeah,
playing,
Bressel on the right wing as well. He was getting on to the end of some messy passes, but at the end, like I said, it's just not enough quality. Like they're able to make the runs, but like what you do with the ball once you receive it from Messi is ultimately up to you.
yeah, I mean,
And they just don't have enough quality in the attacking third to really do any damage, especially against an experienced Monterrey team.
yeah. The reason it works for him at Argentina is because like on the wing you have Di Maria, or you're passing it to Julian Alvarez, or you're passing with a player with quality. And this Inter Miami team really just lacks it out of
I feel like they lack a lot of balance, pretty much. They would, and that's what sucks about like when you try to bring big name players to teams like this. I mean, we kind of saw it with PSG last year, where they try to bring in Messi. They had Neymar too, Sergio Ramos, and yes, they're big name players. And on paper, looks good. On the books, it looks good. You got people coming in from different parts of the world to watch these players, but I mean, they're not able to perform at the highest level anymore. And that's kind of required when it comes to even the CONCACAF Champions League. Yes, first the Champions League, but even the CONCACAF Champions League, you have to be at your highest level. You have to be extremely balanced from goalkeeper to forward, and this just was unfortunate for Inter Miami. They weren't able to do it, and it sucks even worse because you got to feel for David Beckham, who was in the stands, and you see him just kind of like staring onto the distance, like, damn, like we
looking at
were
his
really playing this. Yeah, pretty much looking at your investment collapse. And I mean, there's still plenty of league to play. They can definitely go into playoffs, and who knows, make a title run. But that's pretty much it for their hopes in the Club World Cup, unless for whatever reason, I think there is talks for like I think FIFA can invite like a special like team or special guest to come into the Club World Cup, and a lot of people are saying that it might be Inter Miami. I don't know if that's 100% true, but I did hear that they FIFA are making this rule where they are allowed to bring in one special team from wherever they want, and I think that they were saving that just in case Inter Miami did not show up. So it could be
what a shameful way to qualify if that's how they qualify.
I would hope not. I think they would. I would hope that they give it to a team that deserves it, like that's like better in ranking, pretty much. Like, okay,
give it to Libertadores team. Give it to a team that's actually going to come to qualify, or that's actually going to compete versus these European teams. Because Inter Miami, if they couldn't beat Monterrey, what makes you think they'll be able to compete versus Manchester City? I mean, Monterrey, not that far long back, they were actually competing versus Liverpool. They lost 2-1 in overtime. And these Mexican teams have proven that they can compete versus Europeans, at least in the Club World Cup scheme. You have Monterrey qualifying to the final, barely losing 1-0 to Bayern with the Lewandowski controversial goal. So I mean, give it to another South American team.
What you meant Tigres, no? When they played against Bayern?
Oh yeah, sorry, Tigres versus Bayern.
Oh, I was like confused. Monterrey Bayern. I thought I was Tigres Bayern.
Monterrey versus Liverpool. The year before that, it was a semifinal, and Monterrey pushes it to overtime, and they eventually lose, but versus a solid Liverpool team, the best team in the world at that point. But I mean, it's shameful from this Inter Miami team. We really expected a lot more. I mean, you have Jordi Alba really just out of frustration, just kicking players from the back.
Yeah,
Kicks
it was sad to see because like these are players that like when they were in their prime, you kind of look up to them because at some point they were the world's best, and you see like that transition. Maybe not Messi; he was a little bit more calm throughout the game, but he did seem disappointed. But when it came to Suarez and when it came to Jordi Alba specifically, like the way that they spoke to the ref or the way they spoke to other players around them,
just
just yelling at them, verbally abusing them, kicking and screaming. And there was this specific play that kind of made me chuckle because I think Suarez had gotten fouled from the back trying to receive the ball, and then he just did like 3, 4, 5 rolls to try to make it extremely dramatic so that the Monterrey defender, I think it was Stefan Medina. I think that's when he got yellow card, and then he just started laughing and he started pointing at him like what is what am I supposed to do? Yeah, or what is he doing? So yeah, it is sad to see, but I mean, all credit to Monterrey. They played an incredible game, pretty much from the first minute to last minute, and they did leak that one goal, but it was from a set piece. So I mean, there wasn't much that they could have done there.
I mean, the thing with that is that like that's really a mental lapse from Tan Ortiz. I mean, your dad's told you. I know my dad's told me where like when on set pieces you really don't make any subs because that's when there's a mental lapse. People lose their mark and they don't really know who they're marking. I know your dad's told you that. And my dad's told me that. And it's really just like basic. It's really like kinder type football.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's just a mental lapse. And I mean, like you were saying, it's Monterrey's just. I mean, this Monterrey team was just levels ahead of Miami by a lot.
Now, moving forward and kind of wrapping things up, where do you feel like these teams rank in? Let's say from a scale of 1 to 4, since it is a semifinal, so there's only 4 teams left. We got Pachuca, we got Monterrey, we got America, and we got Columbus Crew. I think it's going to be Pachuca, America in one semifinal bracket, and then Monterrey, Columbus Crew in the other bracket. Where do you feel like these teams rank from number 1 being most likely to win the championship, and then 4 the least likely?
I'm gonna go, and I'll give my reasoning right now. I'm gonna go Pachuca first because they've beaten America in the league, and because they're Pachuca. They're most likely gonna close at home the semifinals, so they're gonna qualify for the final. And I think they're just a more balanced team, and I mean they have a strong striker. So I'm gonna go Pachuca first, and I'm gonna go Monterrey second because of the same exact reason. They have a strong style of play. They when they want to take the ball away from you, they can, and when they want to score on you, they will do that. And they have 2 really strong strikers where they're playing Berterame at the 9 and Brandon Vasquez just under him. For those kind of switch ups, when Brandon Vasquez, goes on a sprint towards the goalie, you have Berterame kind of like covering, like this gap right here for any mistake that the defenders make. And that's just elite football for me. And so I'm gonna go third America for sure because they're so good on the attack and offensively, and they're just a well structured team at the back where they really know how to build out and take the ball away from you as well. With Diego Valdez, maintaining their midfield. And then fourth, I'd have to go to Columbus Crew just because, although Cucho Hernandez is a really good player and Diego Rossi, they do a very well link up. I just think they're not top 3, or they wouldn't be not even a top 3 team in Liga MX. No disrespect to them, that's not an offense. It's just where they're at right now. That they need 2, 3 more solid players that they could implement into this style where it would really help them. They needed like a Diego Valdez, a midfielder that that it's able to hold down that midfield and able to just take interceptions where you just take the ball from the other team and you attack when you want, where you're able to do what you want.
Well, I would argue that they have a really good player that does that in Darlington Nagme. He's kind of pivotal in that number 6 role.
I mean, the fact that I just don't see him as good as I see, players like when Jordi Cortizo subs on for Monterrey, you see that, that impact that he makes, crazily in the beginning. Or Diego Valdez. If you compare that player to Diego Valdez, I take Diego Valdez every time. And that's just because he recovers the ball so well and they attack so well, and just in pivotal moments when you need them, they're there. And I mean, versus Tigres, he does a solid at recovering the ball and playing it out through his midfield and getting it wide and taking the ball away in pivotal moments. But I just have to stick with these center mids from Liga MX. I feel like they're just better. At least for
Now,
me.
I'm gonna disagree with you just because, I mean, for Columbus Crew to be able to do that in Nuevo León, what's there to say that they can't do that in Monterrey? Now, will they win the final? I don't know. Can they get through Monterrey? I believe so if they're able to get through Tigres,
No.
because it's kind of like the par of Monterrey of Tigres. Well, let me state my case, bro. I mean, they're first of all, they're the MLS champs, so that's not to be taken lightly. They play good football. They have two killers in Cucho Hernandez and Diego Rossi. They have a great recovering defensive midfielder in Darlington Nabby who can also create as well. Aiden Morris, who also can create and can score bangers, like he's proved, I think, at the weekend for the Crew. And I'm not saying that it's going to be an easy task for them against Monterrey. It's going to be extremely difficult. And I'm not saying that they're going to be champions either, but I wouldn't put them as low as fourth. I think they have a slightly better chance than.
Then who?
I'm like, shit. Like, who?
Yeah, ponder.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking about it. I mean, I don't know. It's just I felt like there was a little bit of disrespect towards Columbus Crew, so I'm like over here trying to state my case for them. But like, I do agree that the Liga MX teams are just so strong right now, but they haven't come up against this Columbus Crew. So I guess we'll really see what will be fully ranked because I don't know. So my first place, and I think that who will probably be the eventual winner of the champion is Pachuca, because like you said, the fact that they did win in Liga MX against America, so they already have that know-how to be able to do that in league, and I think they will be able to bring that to the CONCACAF Champions League. They have a lot of confidence. They're playing with a lot of confidence, and you see that with every player on the team. I mean, America as well. They're playing with extreme confidence, but you have to look at. Oh, I was gonna say you have to look at who they played, but Pachuca played at Herediano, and then America played in New England Revolution. So it's just so extremely hard to test. To see who's at their best when they played extremely poor teams. So I guess you will really see after the first legs who's really truly.
Really, the strongest matchup for a Liga MX team. This was the Regios. They really got Tigres versus Columbus and Monterrey versus Inter Miami.
And I think right now that's going to be the toughest matchup for Monterrey moving into the semifinals, playing against Columbus Crew. I wouldn't give a prediction just because if I were to say Monterrey is going to win, and like I said, I thought Tigres was going to win, I feel like Columbus Crew is going to shut everyone up like they did, and they're going to prove everybody wrong. So I don't want to make a prediction, but
I just look at the instances to how Columbus Crew was able to take advantage against Tigres, and I just don't see those weaknesses that Tigres has in this Monterrey team. Like age. Monterrey doesn't have that problem. They have a lot of fresh legs. You have players like Jordi Cortizo and Jonathan Gonzalez, subbing on. And these players are these are young players who really just put an impact into your midfield. And, you have Berterame, another young, well, not young, but, semi-experimented, but definitely not old player. And you have Brandon Vasquez, he's really just...
He's fresh enough.
A semi-consolidated striker who's still really young for what it is to be a striker. And, you look at these players, and they really don't have the problem that Tigres had. I don't see them going 180 minutes and cramping up like that. I just don't. And, they played against versus Miami, and they were pretty comfortable in that heat where Tigres was already cramping up in 90 minutes. And that's really just due to age. It happens. It's just a time for a generational change for Tigres. But I just don't see where Columbus Crew takes advantage of that. And, this goalie, he creates a mistake versus Monterrey, which is the same goalie that Columbus's goalie created, versus Tigres, where it's really just the pressure of the stadium. And so this game is being closed in Monterrey. So how would they
react?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they're gonna have to fix that up because I'm sure they're not gonna make the same mistake where the goalkeeper, has a complete blunder like that. At least I would hope not. But I guess we'll see. And looking at the first legs, I think they're probably next week or the next coming weeks. But my predictions
first leg
for the first leg, it's for Monterrey versus Columbus. They're playing in Ohio, right?
Yeah, Ohio up first.
I'm going with the draw, 1-1.
1-1. Okay.
And then for Pachuca America, I'm going with the 2-1 win for Pachuca.
It's at Azteca first.
Azteca.
Yeah.
Damn, that's gonna be a tough. All right, I'm gonna go 2-1 win for America then.
I'd say yeah. I could see the thing with Liga MX. I mean, you watch Liga MX. The thing with Liga MX first legs is that they're so lazy. Sometimes they're 0-0s, 1-1s.
Very safe.
They're
Very
really
safe.
safe games. Yeah. So I'm gonna go with a draw. I'm gonna go 0-0 or 1-1. Maybe even America, surprises and gets a 2-1.
Now for Monterrey Columbus.
Monterrey Columbus. I'm gonna have to go. It's just that
In Ohio.
in Ohio, I don't know the weather in Ohio right now, but in April, I don't think it will be that cold. I'm gonna go with Monterrey winning 1-0 or 2-1, just because I seen them doing it Inter Miami, and I just don't think that they're really afraid of playing away at any stadium because they just show that they're not.
All right. Well, let's wrap it up there. Let's see what happens next week or in the coming weeks for the CONCACAF Champions League. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Tomas, for hopping on. Make sure to follow us on our personal socials. We'll link that down below. Make sure to follow us on CharlaFootball. That's CHARLA football.com. You can find all our links to our TikTok, Instagram, Spotify, and whatnot, pretty much, and articles as well. They'll be uploaded weekly. Make sure to support your small creators because together we're going to make it big, guys. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.